Story 18. I moved to a quiet town, but something unseen haunted my home. Unbelievable true story. I live in Smeaton, Australia, a small, rural Victorian town you've probably never heard of. And when I say small, I mean it. The population is barely 250 people, give or take. It's the kind of place where time seems to slow down. Everyone knows everyone, and life feels quieter, simpler. That's why I moved here. After years of city living, I wanted to get away from the noise, the chaos, and the stress. I craved peace and quiet. At least, that's what I thought. When I first found the house, it felt perfect. Nestled near the edge of a small valley that slopes down to a creek, it was surrounded by nothing but trees and open land. The real estate agent called it a slice of tranquility, and I believed her. It seemed like the ideal place to start fresh, to finally breathe and enjoy the solitude I'd been longing for. The first week was bliss. I spent my days unpacking, exploring the little town, and hiking down to the creek. The house itself was small but cozy, with a front porch that offered stunning views of the valley. Mornings were peaceful, filled with the sound of birds chirping and the gentle rustle of leaves. For the first time in a long time, I felt at ease. But peace doesn't last forever. Not here. It started with something small, something I didn't even think twice about at the time. About a week after I moved in, I noticed a trail in the valley. It was faint at first, just a subtle line cutting through the tall grass. I assumed it was an animal path. Kangaroos were common in this part of Victoria, and they often left tracks near water sources like the creek. But as the days went on, the trail became more distinct. The grass was flattened, the dirt compacted. Whatever had made it was heavy, and it always followed the same path. What struck me as odd was how straight it was. Animal trails are usually haphazard, winding around obstacles. This one went directly up the valley, as if something had walked with purpose. And it always stopped, right at the top, just outside the fence line separating my property from the valley drop-off. I brushed it off, telling myself it was nothing. But a week later, something happened that I couldn't ignore. It was late at night, and I couldn't sleep. The quiet here was so different from the constant hum of the city, and it left me restless. So, I made myself a cup of tea and settled on the couch to watch some late-night TV. That's when I heard it, the rustling of leaves outside, near the same window where I'd noticed the trail. At first, I thought it was just the wind. But the sound was too deliberate, too rhythmic. It sounded like footsteps. My heart started pounding as I crept to the window, careful not to make a sound. Peering through the curtain, I saw movement, a figure running down the valley trail, disappearing into the trees below. I froze, my mind racing. Was it a trespasser? A vandal? Or something worse? I decided to start keeping a diary, just in case I needed to document these events for the police later. I told myself it was probably nothing, just a one-time thing. But deep down, I knew better. The footsteps returned a few nights later, heavier this time. I stayed up, listening to them approach the fence line and stop, as if whoever, or whatever it was watching my house. I was too scared to look out the window again. Things escalated quickly after that. On November 12th, I was jolted awake by a loud crash outside. Grabbing a flashlight, I cautiously stepped onto the porch and shone the beam toward the fence. It had been cut clean through, as if someone had used bolt cutters. I installed a lock on the gate the next day, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it wouldn't make a difference. Whoever this was seemed determined and organized. A few days later, I woke up to find the entire side fence flattened. The posts were snapped, the wire crumpled. It was as if something massive had plowed through it. I called the police, who came out to investigate, but they didn't have any answers. They said it was probably vandals or maybe even wild animals. But I knew this was no animal. When the local police arrested a group of troublemakers who lived across the creek, I thought the nightmare was over. The officers said the suspects had confessed to some of the property damage, and for a few nights, things were quiet again. I started to relax, thinking the worst was behind me. But on November 23rd, the quiet was shattered. I woke to find one of my windows smashed. Glass littered the floor, and outside, there were deep scratch marks etched into the window frame. They were long, jagged, and deliberate. The sight of them sent chills down my spine. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I purchased a CCTV system and set up cameras around the property, hoping to catch whoever or whatever was responsible. That's when I saw it. The first time the CCTV footage captured the figure, I thought it was a trick of the light. It was tall, impossibly tall, with spindly limbs that moved in an unnatural, jerky manner. Its proportions were wrong, too thin, too elongated. And its face was a blank, featureless void. The figure stood at the edge of the fence, motionless, staring toward the house. Then, as if sensing it was being watched, it tilted its head slightly before retreating into the trees. Over the next few nights, more figures appeared. Sometimes there were 2, other times 3 or 4. They always came after sunset, standing silently at the edge of the yard, their pale, featureless faces turned toward the house. They didn't move much, just stood there, as if waiting for something. The sound of their claws scratching against the walls haunted me. It was soft at first, almost tentative, like they were testing the boundaries. But as the nights went on, the scratches grew louder, more aggressive. On December 5th, the night before I finally fled, they came in greater numbers. I counted at least 5 figures, their silhouettes stark against the moonlit valley. One of them reached out with a long, bony arm, its claws raking softly against the broken side window. Another crouched low, peering directly into one of the cameras. Its blank face filled the monitor, and for a moment, I thought I could hear it breathing. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the corner of the living room, clutching a kitchen knife, my eyes glued to the CCTV monitor. The figures didn't leave until dawn, retreating back into the trees as the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon. I packed my car and left that morning. I didn't look back. The house still stands, abandoned and forgotten, a silent witness to something I'll never fully understand. The footage remains on my hard drive, but I can't bring myself to watch it again. It's too horrifying, too real. Whatever those things were, they weren't human. And I'll never know what they wanted or what they were waiting for. All I know is that I escaped. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if they followed me.